Greetings, greetings. I am moving forward with our study of D. Lagoon. This is for the Sweetwater Collective. And so last week we were doing Okanron. We finished up Okanron. And before that, we had already done Ejioko and Oyeku. So we're going to move on forward to Irosun and move into this actually is the next video. I'm sorry, I'm reading my metrics down here at the bottom. So Irosun would actually be the next verse in the oracle, and so we're going to move on into that, and we'll start with Irosun today. The next time we meet, we'll do another verse in Irosun, and after that, we'll continue to move forward. So I'm trying to teach them in order of seniority and had gotten off track early on. So trying to make sure that we're staying on track. All right, so today we're talking about Irosun. Irosun in general is looked at as a verse that focuses on your connection with the ancestors and to a certain extent your connection with your living family, those members of your family that are still on the physical plane. So when we deal with Irosun, those are the two aspects of our lives that we're dealing with. From the ancient Anago perspective, no ma'am, your ancestors or those members of your family that have passed away are just as important, and you maintain the relationship with them, and you understand that it has to be maintained in the same way that you maintain your relationship with your living relatives. Um, I believe it was Mother Marimba Ani, honored mother and scholar, who said that for African people, for people of African descent, maintaining a relationship with your ancestors is part of what helps you to remain sane. And I completely agree with that. When we are navigating life, when we're navigating our experience, our brains, our bodies, our minds have an expectation of maintaining a connection with our ancestors. And that is part of being born into this particular type of body, part of being born into this ethnicity, is that there is an expectation that you're going to maintain that connection. And so when you don't, your psyche then suffers. And whenever your psyche suffers, this is what we see as mental illness. This is how we um, diagnose, basically, or are able to determine whether or not a person is mentally well. So, for those of us who are African born in the West, many of the problems that we face, many of the issues that we find ourselves faced with are based upon the fact that we have lost that connection for the most part with our ancestors. And we do not take the time to maintain it. And so while we know that from day to day, if we have relatives that are living, that there are specific times that we reach out to them, specific times that we contact them, specific times that we make sure that we spend with them, but we haven't been taught to do the same with our ancestors. So Irosun is one of the Odu that reminds us of the necessity of doing the same with our ancestors. Energy can't be created or destroyed. So when we talk about our ancestors and maintaining a connection with them, what keeps us alive, what animates our physical bodies is the energy that is inside it. That's what creates the vibration that helps us to determine that this thing is alive. Energy does not end, energy does not stop. So, for example, my mother is an ancestor. So, that energy, that vibration that was and is her, because it is no longer within her physical body, has not stopped. It has not ceased to be. Her as that physical being, as that particular physical being, has ceased to be. But her overall will continue to exist. And so, because that particular being is essential to me, that being is essential. Without that being, I wouldn't exist. Then it is just as essential for me to maintain that connection and to understand that that connection is still there and not to downplay it, not to make it seem as though it's not that important. It's very important for me to understand that it's still just as essential as it was, if not more so to a certain degree. So, and I've done videos before on ancestors. So just for further understanding, you can refer to one of those. But because that's what we'll be discussing in our verse today, I kind of wanted to go back and give some more information on it and overview on it for those who may not be familiar, for those who perhaps have not seen those other videos. Okay. So we're going to start with Irosun. This is the Logun Oracle. The book that I'm using is called 16 Calories. It is one of the first translations and then written accounts of this particular oracle. It was done by a British man, William Bascombe. So this particular verse begins, no sash is as fine as a bright red sash, and no heel is as fine as body heel. Body heel is so good, it has a pointed head. No road is as nice as the road to Share. This was cast for Ajeji Godogbo. Ajeji Godogbo means stout foreigner. Now, I'm from the country. When we call somebody stout, this means that they're big. So this is the same terminology that they're using here. This is cast for a stout foreigner, Ajeji Godogbo. And he was going to live in the town of Paris. Not Paris, Perry in Yoruba land. And so, as he was on his way to this town, he found out that the people there were unhappy and that their lives were troubled. When he did his divination to see whether or not he should go to this town, then he was told that he should make Abba. Abba is sacrifices, Abba is offerings. According to our ancestors, and if you are over the age of 25, you know that this is true. According to our ancestors, the price of life is sacrifice, right? You have to give up something in life to get something else. That is the nature of the physical realm. This physical realm that we created, that's the nature of it. So when you get a divination, then the Orisha will sometimes let you know that you need to make a specific type of sacrifice, a specific type of eba. We call it eba in the tradition. So he went to get a divination. He was about to move to a new town. If you practice the tradition, anytime you're about to take a big step like that, then you go to your diviner and you check and see, is this within the best interest of my destiny? What can I do to make sure that this runs smoothly? How can I make sure that this is the right step for me? And what can I do to ensure the assistance of the Orisha, of the forces of nature and the cosmic forces in this endeavor? So because he practiced the tradition, he went to get his divination. Got his divination and said, yes, it's good for you to move to the town of Paris, but you have to make Abba before you go. So they told him to offer 28,000 calories, a rooster, a pigeon, a rat, and some cloth. And they said that he should offer that. And so Ajeji Godogbo collected the Eba and he made his offering. The people of Peri, they went to get a divination. The chief of the town, the person who was responsible for the well-being of the entire town, went to get a divination on behalf of the town. And so when the chief went to his diviner and got his divination, what he was told was, it is a stranger who will set your lives right. And in this particular sentence, they refer to a stranger as Alejo. Alejo, I'm sorry, Alejo. That's one of the terms that means stranger. And in some iles in Latino countries, that term is still used for people who don't practice the tradition. And because the J isn't pronounced, that's why I'm even now pronouncing it as Alejo, because I've heard it used with Latino brothers and sisters. So it's the term that term is still sometimes used. But when the chief had gone to get his divination, the diviner said, "Don't worry, there is a stranger that will set your lives right." So Ajeje Godogbo, the stout foreigner, he started off. He walked and he walked and he walked to the town of Peri. By the time he got there, it had taken him so long that everything that he had on had become rags. And he didn't want to, he was ashamed to enter into the town looking like that. Because, us as African people, we always got to look our best. That's part of our culture, it's part of our ethnicity, is we like to look our best. We didn't want to make his first, entry into the town looking raggedy. So he sat outside the gates of the town. But as he sat outside the gates of the town, the people who lived there were coming in and out. They were coming in and out of the gates. And so if they would pass, as they would pass by, he would speak blessings upon them. So if a woman passed by several times, he saw that she didn't have any children, he would say, "May you have children." If someone passed by and it looked as though they hadn't eaten in a while, then he would say, may you have food." If someone passed by and it looked as though they didn't have enough financial resources to take care of what they needed to take care of, then he would say, "May you be blessed with prosperity." So he was blessing the people of Peri in their comings and goings, but he had not ever entered into the town. And so the chief of the town began to notice that the people were prospering. And he was like, "Oh, people seem to be doing much better than they were before, when I went to get the divination." And everything that stout foreigner proclaimed over people, every blessing that he proclaimed over the people would come to pass. So when the chief called the people and said, "What's going on? I see everybody seems to be doing better. It looks like everybody is now, getting everything that they need. What happened? What changed?" And the people said, "There is an Ajeji Godokbo right outside the gate, and he has been blessing us. And every blessing that he gives us has been coming into fruition." And the chief was like, "Oh, this is the stranger that my divination has spoken of." And he was so happy. So he said, "We must do something for this stout foreigner to show our happiness." And the people said, "Well, he's wearing rags, he doesn't have anything nice to wear." And so the chief came up with an idea. And he went to each home and he got a piece of cloth. Okay, I'm gonna show you guys when they say he got a piece of cloth. I'm gonna show you how cloth works in traditional Yoruba society. Hold on, we get something so you can see what this means. So this is the old-fashioned style of Yoruba cloth. Nobody really wears this style that much anymore, but it'll work for my purposes. So cloth, nice cloth in Yoruba land is made in strips. See, this is a strip, and it's all sewn together to make one piece. So this strip is woven on a loom. Okay, this is another example. So you can see here how it's made in a strip, right? Okay. So what the chief said was, "Go to each house and gather a strip of their fine cloth. Let each house give a strip of their beautiful cloth." This particular type of cloth is called ashoke. Ashoke, cloth, kind of like K is kind of like petting, pampering. So it's like really, really nice, good cloth. So he said, go to each house and gather a piece of fine, nice cloth, a strip of it, one strip from each house. And so every household went and found their nicest strip of cloth. And he took this to the seamstress and he said, sew all of these pieces together to make one big cloth. But as you can imagine, each house gave a different type of cloth, right? So even from my house, it would have been this beautiful purple and yellow ashoke, and then this beautiful red and gold ashoke, right? So it's two different kinds, right? Then if I come to your house, I may get silver and blue. Come to someone else's house, it may be green and black. All these different beautiful variations of cloth. So after they were gathered, they were all sewn together in one big piece. And the chief took the cloth and went outside of the gates of the town of Peri and presented it to the Ajeje Godogbo, the stout foreigner, the big stranger from a different place, and thanked him. Thank you so much for blessing those of us here in the town of Peri. Now that you are no longer wearing rags, now that you are wearing this fine, fine, nice cloth, please come in, right? Please come in. Walewa, come in. Come into the house, right? Now that you're dressed so fine. And Ajeje Godogbo was so pleased with this beautiful, massive piece of cloth that they had given him that he placed it over his head. And as he came in through the town gate, he began to twirl and to dance inside the cloth, right? And this energy was generated. Energy was whipped up from this twirling with this massive cloth that had all of the good intentions from every member of the town in it. And then the Orisha asked, do you know the one that we are calling Ajeji Godogbo? It is a gungun, right? It is the honored ancestors. So this is the first verse of Irosun. This is the verse in which the worship and the reverence of our ancestors was born. All right. So the town of Peri is a microcosm of us, of our lives. So at any point in our lives, we may come to a point when we're unhappy, right? It's normal. It's normal to come to a point in your life when you're unhappy. It's normal to come to a point in your life when things are not going as planned. Oh, I thought this was going to go this way. It didn't go this way. I don't have as much money as I thought I was going to have. Things are not working out in my relationship the way that I thought they would work out. Things are not working out in my business. Things are not working out in my job. That's normal for life, just like the people of the town of Perry, right? Your life will sometimes become unhappy, and you sometimes feel as though there are blockages and obstacles to you fulfilling your destiny. That's what was happening for those people. So at that time, you go and you get a divination. And the Orisha let you know your blessing is coming from outside. So when something is going wrong in your life, generally the first step that you should take should be a step to make sure that you repair the spiritual, because the spiritual is the seed for everything else. So this is what we see in this particular itan, this particular verse. So the people said, okay, let us go and repair the spiritual, because that's where everything begins. And this is what you should do as well. And the first step, the first spiritual line of communication is with your ancestors that we call Egun or Egungun, right? Egun, ancestors. Egungun, honored ancestors. So that's your first line of spiritual communication. That is the first connection that you have to the spiritual world. It is completely and totally connected to you. They are in your DNA. You are made up of them. You lived inside their bodies before you were born, before you were conceived. So you are made up of them, literally. It's not figuratively. It's literally, it is for real. So then obviously that's your first contact in the spirit realm. So when you see things aren't going right, then that's who you go to first, your ancestors, right? But what? Ancestors are in a different realm. They're no longer in the physical realm. We're here in the town of Perry in the physical realm. And the ancestors are where? Outside the gate. They're not in the same realm that we're in. So, in order to get the blessings from the ancestors, you have to make contact. You have to communicate with them. You have to interact with them. Just as the people had to interact with the Ajeji Godogbo outside of the town of Peri. If they had never came in and out of those gates, then they never would have been getting that blessing, right? So this is the same. They exist, they're in a different realm. You are over here in this realm. You have to make that connection to get what you need to get from them. By the same token, Ajeji Godogbo also needed something from the people of the town of Peri. And so the connection had to be made because it was good for those still on the physical realm, and it was also good for those who have moved on into the spiritual realm. So whenever I am doing divination for someone and this particular Odu falls, then what I say is your ancestors are waiting outside of the gates of your life. And their wish and their desire and what they have the ability to do because they're no longer in the physical is bless you with everything that you need and everything that you want in order to fulfill your destiny. All that you have to do is ask them. All that you have to do is let them in. All that you have to do is connect with them. And once you have made that connection, and once you have received those blessings, then you revere them. So, one of the most ancient ways that we revere our ancestors is with the Egungun masquerade. And the cloth, the giant cloth that was described in this particular Itan of Iro-sun, we call it Agan. We call the big Egungun cloth the Agan. And we honor them by creating this big cloth for them. And then members of the Egungun society, masqueraders of the Egungun society, embody your ancestor and they dance for your ancestors. So this is one of our original, most ancient ways of paying homage to our ancestors, paying homage to our Egungun. Here in the West, that became what we call the ancestral staff. And we do the same thing. We find a giant, nice branch, nice piece of wood, tall, has to be taller than you. And we take strips of cloth, some that have actually belonged to our ancestors, and beautiful strips of cloth that we can find, and we cover that entire staff with cloth. So, and we tie the strips to the top and allow them to hang down. And once that whole branch is covered with cloth, it looks similar to a gungun underneath the agan cloth. So this is how we transformed it here in the West because we didn't always have the opportunity to invoke that spirit of a gungun and allow that masquerade to happen with that piece of cloth. We began to then do it in a different way, in a way that we always had access to. So this particular Itan is reminding you of the absolute necessity of connecting with your ancestors. We who were born in the West do not know all of our ancestors. We do not. And it is one of the great tragedies of the enslavement period that we don't know all of our ancestors. But do you know what? They still live within your DNA. They still live within your DNA. So you can still call on them. I did a naming ceremony here recently. And when you do a naming ceremony, then the mommy and the baba have to call out the names of their honored ancestors before you name the baby who is an ancestor returning. So they called out all the names of their honored ancestors, and I said, and the ones that you don't know, then you always say, oh, all of my righteous ancestors of this line. For me, all my righteous ancestors of the Fields line, all of my righteous ancestors of the Timmons line. I have to go and just say the righteous ones that I do not know. All of those righteous ancestors, I call on you as well. So you do not have to worry that access to them has been lost, because it hasn't. It's impossible for it to be lost. They literally live in your bones. Literally. That's what Egun means, is bones. They literally live inside you. So access cannot be lost. So call upon them. Call upon your ancestors. Invite your ancestors into your life. Allow them to bless you with everything it is that you need in order to fulfill this destiny. That's what they're waiting to do. They're waiting outside of the gates of your life. They are the stout foreigner, the big, big creature from another place. That's your ancestors. So that is what we will share today from Iro-sun. The client was praising the diviners, and the diviners was praising the Orisha, that the Orisha has spoken the truth, right? No sash is as fine as a bright red sash. No heel is as great as body heel. No road is as nice as the road to Charette. So every Odu has a little saying at the beginning of it like that. Do you see the way that Orisha says that this is so? Do you see Stout Foreigner? He is the one that we are calling Egungun. All right, so we will meet together again next week at 1 p.m. Everything is always Central Time because I'm in Tennessee, and we'll do another verse in Iro-sun. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I will see you back here next week. All right, peace.